everyone. Welcome to another ECH Postgame Live. This one after a 3-2 loss to the St. Louis Blues. I see Mason's comment in here. Just want to kick this off. Even Dylan and RJ don't want to come out for the postgame live. Sorry for the late start. I was just getting home today. Today was a travel day, getting everything set up, camera, mic back attached along here. So apologize for the late start. But man, this one was tough. Going into the trade deadline, Kraken with a game against the St. Louis Blues, who really were they're in the process of being dismantled. I mean, they lose potentially Parayko today. I mean, that trade is like pending Parayko's acceptance of it. You know, he didn't play in this one. They got Robert Thomas, Jordan Kyrou on the trade block. They might be gone in the next couple days. I just want to give credit to the Blues. Like, they gave a really good effort tonight in this game. Like, that is admirable given everything that's going on around the team. So just want to, give them some credit because they worked really hard and they played really well. I think honestly a better effort than Carolina gave a couple nights ago. But welcome to the post game live, presented by Queen Anne Beer Hall. By the way, we had our last watch party at Moss Bay Hall on their east side location at Kirkland, also against the St. Louis Blues. I feel like this one was closer. This one might have been a better game, but these games against the Blues, man, I don't know. They do not match up well, but we do have a couple more dates for watch parties too that I can throw out there. I'll put posters and do the graphics and everything. But March 19th is the next one. That one will be at Queen Anne Beer Hall, and that'll be for the Kraken's game against the Nashville Predators. I feel more optimistic about that opponent, but maybe I should knock on wood here. Don't want to jinx anything. And then back at Moss Bay Hall, April 6th at Winnipeg. So looking forward to those two, getting those last couple watch parties out at Queen Anne Beer Hall and Moss Bay Hall before the season ends. And then, hey, if it's playoffs, every road game is going to be awesome at Queen Anne Beer Hall, and Dylan and I are going to be there. So that'll be great. But yeah, Dylan's going to join us in a little bit. He is at the game. So he'll join us in a bit. We'll get comments from the players, the coaches, all of that. But let's hop into chat. It's been long enough here. Maddie, I don't think we did good. Yeah, overall not a good effort from the Kraken in this one. They certainly had stretches where I thought they looked very good. They put on a push. I'm talking about the end of the second period. I'm really surprised they didn't get one to go toward the end of the second. They put on a long, prolonged push. I think the fact that the Blues were able to hang on through that was a big reason they won the game. And then at the end, as the Kraken always do, they put on a final push. They made it close late. Just wasn't enough. They weren't able to get a puck to go. But overall, yeah, you got to be better, because there were also long stretches where the Blues were getting grade A chance after grade A chance. And you can't let a team that's near the bottom of the NHL standings do that to you this consistently. I think if not for Philip Grubauer, the Blues could have just put this one, out of contention pretty early. I think it could have easily been 3-1, 4-1 St. Louis, if not for Grubauer. So, I mean, he's my first star of the Kraken tonight. Grubauer did everything he could to keep his team in the game, despite them just really struggling defensively and giving up a lot of grade A chances on him. But I thought Grubauer was excellent in this one. The goals, he couldn't really do anything about. Mason still in a playoff spot, but that one stings. Yeah, it does. I think the Kraken are still in a fine spot. I'm not hitting the panic button at all. I think nothing really changes ahead of the deadline. You're still in a really good spot to make the playoffs, but that does sting. Like, that is one of the easy games on your schedule, and the Kraken can usually take care of the easy ones. For some reason against St. Louis, it doesn't work out that way. And then also, yeah, Hofer stopped shots he shouldn't have. Definitely. I think, like, Hofer was excellent in this one. It was a goalie battle between him and Philip Grubauer, and I think Hofer came out on top. He was awesome. This and the last game against St. Louis, like, Joel Hofer is dialed in right now. He is playing some great hockey, and I feel like it's kind of rare this season that the Kraken have one of those steal a game type goalie performances go against them. But it certainly happened tonight, even as good as Philip Grubauer was playing. Sarah got my heart racing there at the end. Mine too. I mean, I'm sure it's probably calmed down a little bit. Yeah, 82 now, but it was in the 90s for sure as I was watching the end of that game, even though I was just sitting on my couch. Heart was racing, and it was a lot of close calls. I really thought the Kraken were going to get a bounce late. Jamin, why does Stevenson feel the need to take a lunch break every time he gets the puck on the power play? I think the type of player that Chandler Stevenson is, he wants to take his time. It's like when he's on the power play, he wants to take his time. He wants to look and find an option of somebody open. He is a playmaker. That's kind of his first instinct. And so I think he wants to settle things down, slow the game down a little bit, let the guys off the puck move, and maybe find somebody. And I think that's kind of why he has that instinct. Again, sometimes it's too much. If he's pressured after a while and gives up the puck, it's not good. But I think that's kind of the explanation as to why he does that. Because we have the wrong number 9 on the power play. Should be Jesse Eldridge. Yeah, great goal from Jesse Eldridge in the Torrent game tonight. I kind of had my eye on that one. Tough game for the Torrent, like great comeback to tie it, and just, you know, rough goal to give up late. And then also, you know, the chance late with like 3 seconds to go. I thought they were going to tie it late. But yeah, rough one for the Torrent tonight as well. And then Mason, why does he feel the need to take a lunch break anytime he's near the puck ever is the real question. Yeah, I don't mind it on the power play. He's made some great passes on the power play. I think that strategy works. And generally you have more time and space on the power play. In the D zone in this one, I felt like it was kind of more of the same old Chandler Stevenson that we know, where you look at a couple of the goals against, there's the wraparound from Mayu. And I know he's kind of trying to take out his guy net front. Like that's the guy he's focused on. But when he sees Mayu try and wrap the puck around and there's really nobody else, like he's the closest guy to it, doesn't really jump in there fast, doesn't react very quickly, I'll say, and certainly not fast enough to prevent the goal. And then also on the third goal against for the Kraken, Stevenson's out there, you know, just kind of looking around, not really defending anything. But look, we know he's bad in the D zone. That's just kind of the book on him. And that's the trade-off the Kraken make. See, X Kid Z, the Kraken just need to lock in for the rest of the season, but do they have it in them to do so? I do think they have it in them. And this has been the question, like really with the Kraken for the last like 3 years, is can they play that type of focused defensive, methodical hockey, like basically exactly what they did against Carolina. Like they were locked in against Carolina. And if they had played that same game here against St. Louis, they would have won. And the Blues might not have even gotten a goal. That's the way they need to play. It's so hard to play that way for 82 games in a season. It's a lot. It's very taxing. It requires a lot of effort. It requires a lot of focus. Lane Lambert's gotten them to play that way more often than I thought was possible. And so I still believe in him to more often than not get them to play that way. But some nights, you know, if you have an off night, like you are not talented enough to be able to just coast by if you're a little sloppy. Like the Kraken don't have that kind of talent, especially against this Blues team who, you know, they insist on working hard. This last week, really, last 10 games or so for them, it's what it seemed like based on the broadcast. They've been working hard despite the bad record, despite being out of it, despite a lot of these players being about to be traded. Like, you know, I think it also speaks to something we talked about very early in the season, where it feels like the Kraken can play with anyone. They can beat anybody talent-wise if the talent isn't working very hard. And I think that was the case against Carolina. What they struggle with is teams that are maybe a little shorter on talent, but they work just as hard as the Kraken. That's where they struggle. And I think that's kind of what they ran into tonight. From B, ESPN commentary did make me not follow the game nearly as closely as I normally would, but that was still disappointing. Yeah, it's tough with the ESPN game. I didn't love it either, especially because, like, you know, watching the game at home or as I'm coming back home, you know, I actually got the chance. I would have otherwise been able to watch the Kraken broadcast, which I don't get to do for the home games very often. So that was unfortunate. Urso Root here. Should the Kraken still try to trade for Kyrou? Would he even consider a trade? I think they should absolutely still try and trade for Kyrou so long as the price is reasonable. And I think it would be. I talked about it at length on my Armchair GM stream last night. I think it makes a lot of sense for the Kraken. He is the kind of player they need to, especially in a game like this, when you just might need someone else to kind of get you going offensively, someone who can create something himself. Jordan Kyrou can be that guy. And I think they probably wouldn't have to give up too much in terms of elite assets to go get him. You know, you're probably trading away Shane Wright and then plus another thing. I thought another tough game for Shane Wright. The fit doesn't seem to be there. He's a third liner. He was, I thought, maybe the Kraken's worst player against Carolina, and they all played pretty well. But then in this one, you look at the second goal for St. Louis, and it's just a 3-on-3 rush. The Kraken, the other two players, body up their man, take their guy away, and Shane Wright doesn't have his head on a swivel, lets Holloway get behind him, and that's a play where you absolutely just need to tie up the player's stick. You have to notice your player is getting behind you, and that's okay. He can get the body position. The body position isn't going to do anything necessarily, but you need to take away that stick, and that's absolutely legal. You can do that. Just get your stick under his and lift. And if that stick's not on the ice, it can't hurt you, but he doesn't really touch Holloway, and Holloway gets the easy tap in. So I didn't like that play from Shane Wright. You know, I think, again, it's a lot of the stuff around him generally is not his fault, but again, just the last couple of games, I don't think he's played very well. Carl here, ESPN commentary reminding me Forsland might be the only reason I still tune in. I mean, love John Forsland, love JT, love Edzo. Like I did miss the broadcast crew for sure on this one. And then Mason, remind me again why the Blues are trading Thomas. It's because I think they want to blow it all up. And if you're blowing it all up, that means getting rid of everybody. But man, watching Robert Thomas, because I was very interested too. We talked about him at length on the Armchair GM stream last night. I wanted to see how Robert Thomas looked, and I kind of looked a little clearer at him, zoomed in on him on a lot of his shifts. Man, he's good. Robert Thomas is really good. And I think he's probably going to be worth for the acquiring team, whatever it is they have to give up to get him, even though the reported price is really, really high. He's a heck of a player. Ethan, so many pucks jumping sticks in that game. Yeah, for sure. Like, I think, the ice looked a little iffy at times, a lot of pucks jumping sticks, but that just happens. It was probably really humid also, which I know hurts for those kind of things. It was raining today, so maybe that's part of it. Let's see. Jamin, go to the 19th one. Nice. Looking forward to seeing you there at the watch party, Jamin. Grimmy, why? Just why? Yeah, a lot of people kind of agreeing the ESPN commentary was not great. Leave it to Butler. Second goal was a little too late, along with the effort. Really hoping this doesn't trigger Bottrell to be phone happy the next 2 days. Standing still, I think, would be the best move. I don't know that this game is really going to affect Bottrell and his approach to the deadline. I think he's going to try and make that big swing no matter what. And looking at the players that are available where you could make that big swing, and really it's the three names of Kyrou, Thomas, and Pettersson. Those guys all have term. If you're making a deal like that, which I think that's probably the only deal the Kraken are really looking at making, if you make that deal, you're doing it for now and the future, which means that one game here, 2 points in the standings in a close, tight, contested race, that's not going to sway things one way or the other. Like, they're either going to make that move or they're not. And I don't think this game really affects it. XKZ, what's the deal with Wright? I kind of talked about this a little bit. Is he just not a good system fit? Did the lack of proper development permanently hurt him? I wouldn't think we've already seen his potential. I mean, I could go on for half an hour about this, but I'll keep it kind of short. I think I talked about it on the Deep Dive podcast a few weeks ago. I don't remember which one exactly it was, but basically at every juncture of his career, whenever the Kraken have had the opportunity to choose between success in the near term or trying to go for wins in the near term and Shane Wright's development, they've chosen the former every single time. And I think it's just kind of left his development not in a good place. Still, he's playing as a third liner. Like, he's never really gotten the opportunity to be a top 6 guy. And that's not okay for a top 4 pick. And now I think he's not really doing anything to earn it. You're in the middle of a playoff run and all this, playoff push and all this sort of thing. You can't do it. But I think those decisions were made a long time ago. And I think just a change of scenery would be best for him. Bryce Evans Lindgren with the rarely seen 5.4 expected goals percentage on Money Puck. It felt that way. I was waiting for somebody to bring up that deep hair because, man, they were rough. Ryan Lindgren returning from injury. Love to see that. Those two just didn't work well together. They're two lefties, so I think they're both used to playing on the left side of the ice. They just didn't work well together. I think if you want to keep Evans in the lineup, you've got to break those two up somehow. I don't, whether it's messing with the second D pair or whether it's just taking Evans out, scratching him for somebody else or scratching Lindgren for Fleur. I don't know, but that D pair just doesn't work. They were out there for 2 of the 3 goals against and looked pretty bad, just tracking their assignments. I got to see more from those two. I agree. Those, they were not very good. Let's see. Chuck, Blues came out in the third period looking like they were the team trailing. And I think that's really key. I think that's a really good observation there, Chuck, because going to the third period, Kraken trailing only by 1. And that's where you kind of, if you're looking at what the Kraken have done all season, that's when they've put their foot on the gas. They've tied the game, and usually they'll score another one to go take the lead real quick. That's happened a few times as well. And the Blues didn't sit back. They came out and they played like the aggressive team. They put the Kraken on their heels, and the Blues get that crucial third goal that turns out to be the game winner. That was a necessary goal. It just felt un-Kraken-like. Same thing with the Kraken Blues the last time they played, where at the watch party, we were talking, kind of expecting the Kraken to come out. At that point, they were trailing by 2, but expecting that push to come on in the third period. And it just didn't happen at all in that game. And then it didn't happen until it was too late in this one. They got to find that sense of urgency again. And so far, we only haven't seen it for these games against the St. Louis Blues. Like, I don't know if that's a Blues thing. I'll be a lot more worried if in the next game or two that happens again, like if they're trailing to Ottawa in the third and then they kind of go flat at the start of the period, I'll be more concerned. But for the time being, like maybe it's just a Blues thing, but that needs to be better for sure. Edward, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. I think that was the quote from earlier in the season. Yeah, it was. And that's something we talked about. I think that quote encapsulates the Carolina Hurricanes game that they played on Monday. The Kraken, certainly the less talented of those two teams, but they worked really hard. They played focused, they played structured, and they won the game. In this one, you have a couple teams that, neither of them has a ton of talent. They both worked, decently hard, but I think the Blues just worked that much harder, and that's what won out. And then, Mark saying, I know unpopular opinion here, but I don't see what Wright has done to get more iced game time. He just hasn't been that good. There's a reason the coaches haven't played him a lot. This season, yes. Like this season, you're absolutely right. Last season, when the season was lost, when Shane Wright was a top 15 player in the entire NHL on a scoring per minute basis, they still didn't give him that opportunity. They still didn't give him that ice time. They still didn't give him the chance to go out there and play at that next level and do something more and see if he can stick. That's where it was absolutely inexcusable. This season, I'm with you, Mark. I see what you're talking about. Last season, you cannot possibly say that about Shane Wright. And that's really where the decision was made to not prioritize his development that I think really messed things up. Let's see. Mark, I swear the first Blues goal, right stick was held. Am I the only one that saw that? Let me take a look at that here, Mark, because I think you might be thinking about Riker Evans' stick if I'm on the first Blues goal, because I think we got a comment on that. Let's see. Yeah, I think you're thinking about Riker Evans' stick because it's kind of in the armpit of Snuggerud there. The thing is, Evans kind of gets his stick up there into the body in the midsection of Snuggerud, and like that could have been called a hooking penalty too. And so when the refs see that, they're just not going to call the hook and they're not going to call the slight holding of the stick afterward. I think that's what it is. Like, I think if you put your stick in that spot, you're kind of liable for it to be held for at least a little bit. And I think that's probably what the ref saw there. But I see what you mean there. I'm looking at the replay here. And then Bryce Wright had the lowest even strike time on ice. Don't think Lane liked his play either. Yeah, I mean, again, Lane Lambert's job is to play the best players that are going to give him a chance to win in any given night. That's his job. He did his job right there in kind of benching Shane a little bit. And then B kind of getting to me ahead of me there on the Shane Wright thing for last season. Kylie, Blues versus third jersey versus national game just made me feel it was going to be a loss. At least they had a decent push at the end, but too late. There were a lot of those jinx things going against them. And Kylie, I want to thank you for not mentioning also post-game live. It's not a Tuesday. It's not the cursed Tuesdays, but yeah, it did feel like they had a lot of those just kind of bad mojo things going against them in this one. Maybe that's what swung the balance there. Oh, and then Mark saying Evans stick. Yeah, I didn't get to that. Let's see. Jessica, where was the big rig from Monday? I want him back. I thought he had his moments. I thought there were times where he like thought about it and it looked to me like he might have even been thinking, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be like more physical now. Like that's what I'm supposed to do. And there were a couple times where I felt like he did finish a check that maybe he otherwise wouldn't have, or did go a little stronger into a battle or into the boards than he would have. I think there was one on like Toropchenko where the two of them got tangled and Alexiak was kind of putting the strength into it, and he had to because Toropchenko was a big guy. But yeah, he wasn't fully the Carolina game big rig. I don't think we can expect to see that regularly. We kind of know what Jamie Alexiak is. But if it gets to playoff time, then maybe we'll see it more often. And look, I think that's the other thing too, is it's not just Alexiak. It was the whole team that treated the game on Monday like a playoff game. And Alexiak was playing the way he usually plays in the playoffs. The Kraken did not treat this like a playoff game. They treated it like a regular season game that they were probably going to win. And so they didn't have to be the most focused in. Like they just didn't have that level of focus and importance to this one. It felt like, I think Zame from Davy Jones Locker Room even compared kind of the crowd and the atmosphere and everything too. He said that felt like a playoff game on Monday. It felt like a preseason game today. And I think you kind of saw that on the ice as well. Maddie's Dylan at the game. Yeah, he's at the game. So he's going to join us in a little bit. He's down at the locker room talking to the guys. Oh, he's probably heard from Lane Lambert at this point, but yeah, Dylan's going to join us in a little bit. So I also want to shout out and thank you to Dylan for holding things down here for these home games while I was visiting my family. That's a little extra work on Dylan. I really appreciate him doing that. Always happy to step up when we need it. So want to thank Dylan for that. I don't know if he'll watch this on the way back or see this part of it, but I'll thank him when he gets here. And then Carl, not sure Stevenson's earned the ice time ever, but whatever. I mean, I think more than right this season he has. I can't believe I'm saying that, but I think it's true. Chuck, RJ, why do the Blues have our number? I think it's 11-2-2 now versus Seattle all time. That's a good question, Chuck. And that's actually a question my brother texted me during the game. He's like, what is it with the Blues? Why are they always so good against the Kraken? My theory is, and when I watch Kraken Blues games, what stands out to me about St. Louis is that they have finishers. They have guys who can take advantage of mistakes. They have larger guys, like bigger guys who can win puck battles, and especially on the breakout. Like I look at some of their players, they love size. Their defensemen are big. Their wingers are big. And when it comes to a battle in the D zone, it felt like the Kraken for long stretches were not getting to pucks first. And if it was a close 50-50 battle, the Blues were winning those puck battles. And I think it's because they have got a lot of guys that have the size and strength that are able to do that. I think that's a big factor. Also, the Blues, just again, they're good, in transition. Like they basically, they can convert on their chances in a way that a lot of other teams that are like down low in the standings maybe can't. I think also, in recently they have a good coach, Jim Montgomery, who gets them to bring that effort every night. You're not going to get an off game against them, really. The Blues they have that work ethic. And I think the Kraken tend to struggle against teams that have that work ethic, as long as they have guys who are good enough to finish. As we got Dylan here, getting ready to join us. He's still setting things up. And another question, why do the Kraken have a hard time with Blues? That's my theory, but I think I'll ask Dylan what he thinks when he's ready to come on. As we'll wait for Dylan. He's good to go. All right, let's get him out here. We need the overlay. There you go. Hey, Dylan, how's it going?
I mean, it was an exciting finish. There was that going for this game, but otherwise, a little bit of a disappointing one after the way that they were able to play against Carolina just a couple days ago, right? They were able to go toe-to-toe with the top team in the East, get the better of them, really ramp up the intensity, have it feel like a playoff game. And then in this one, you start off strong, you get that early goal there, but after that, it felt like they kind of lost things after the first 5 minutes of the first period. And Lane Lambert said they had it for all of the second. I think they didn't really find it until the last 5 minutes of the second period. Put on a great push in the third period, but it was just not enough to get them out of the hole that they kind of dug for themselves defensively in this one.
Yeah, I mean, I describe it as the end of the second. That's kind of how I put it. I didn't think it was the entire second. I agree with you there rather than Lane Lambert. We got this question from a couple people here, and I'm curious your take because it's just what I was talking about right now. What is it with the St. Louis Blues? Why do the Kraken struggle against St. Louis? Chuck said it's 11-2-2 now, the Blues are, versus Seattle all time. What is it about this Blues team over the last few years that's just had the Kraken's number?
I mean, at least in other years, the Blues have been better. They've been a borderline playoff team or a playoff team. So, all time, there's at least that in the Kraken's favor. This year, though, it's kind of inexcusable, especially on a night like tonight where you have, Joel Hofer starting the game, and I didn't think he looked super sharp, although he definitely made the saves that he needed to. Because Binnington is potentially on the trade block, you have a bunch of guys playing with their names circling in rumors all over the place, and they were just able to come out and outwork you. I don't know how else to say it. A team that has struggled all the season long, a team that is just not very good, and the players on the team that are good are all having to deal with the fact that they might not be playing for this team in 2 days. And you let that group outwork you. Like that's kind of my read on it and what happened this evening.
Yeah, I mean, as I said at the start of this, this is a Blues team that is in the process of being dismantled.
Yeah.
And there's every reason that they could, not give a full effort or take the night off or not want to commit to a game like this, but they did. And the Kraken didn't respond in kind with that level of effort. This one from Anthony here feels like the trend of playing better in front of Joey continues, despite the fact that Grubauer has been better this year. Kind of odd. I don't know about you. I thought Philip Grubauer was excellent in this one. He probably deserved more from the team in front of him.
Yeah, I thought he was good early on as well. Some people were saying, look, he's kind of getting lucky. There was a handful of moments where he kind of lost track of the puck, but it hit him. But I thought that he looked pretty good. It felt like a game that we would have seen though last year, the year before, where team played excellent in front of Joey Decord the other night, and then the Philip Grubauer game comes along, and all of a sudden, right, St. Louis Blues are just able to get into the paint, into his crease, like it's nothing. And they're always kind of right there lurking, and he's having to deal with all of that, and he's having to deal with rush chances for them and all of that sort of thing. And it was just kind of like, all right, are we going back to this where Grubauer's just not going to get any support, guys? Like, what's going on here? But I think they were able to pick that bit up in the second a little bit. Obviously, the last goal for the Blues was pretty inexcusable defensively, but yeah, I thought Grubauer was pretty good tonight.
Yeah. Anything that stood out from you as far as what the players said, or anything else from Lambert as far as reaction to this one?
Yeah, I mean, everybody was disappointed. Whether it was Lane Lambert talking about just what it means to lose this game, given how tight the standings are, and it was a very quick response from him. 2 words: "It stings," from Lane Lambert there, and that was it. Or Vince Dunn talked a little bit about just the confidence that they felt coming off of that Carolina game, and they felt coming into today. And then you of course get the early goal that he was a part of, and he scores one later, and just to have that kind of disappear and lose it, and not totally being sure how or why that happened, it was it's tough, right? And you could tell that he felt that way. You could tell that Jaden Schwartz felt that way as well. Just that I think the team, they felt pretty good coming into this one, and then things kind of went off the rails for them, and they just weren't really able to find it until very late in the second period. And then in the third period, it just wasn't quite enough to get over the hump.
Yeah, one of a few times this season, I think, where Lane Lambert after a game has been just trying to figure out, okay, why are these guys the way that they are? Why do they do what they do sometimes, from a motivational standpoint? I think he's got to think about this one.
Yeah, he did say that he did not feel that the effort level tonight was that, was really any different from the last game, which I don't know that I agree with that, but I understand, coach maybe going with that. And look, there were certainly times, and coming off of the end of this game, right, the last 10 minutes of it, yeah, no, they were playing with passion. They were playing with intensity. They were going out there and trying to do the things that they want to be able to do, and that they were doing against Carolina. But I don't know that I would agree that the 60-minute effort was there in this one the way it was on Monday.
Yeah, I will entertain the idea that the level of effort overall was similar, but the level of focus certainly was not. And I think that was the difference. Focus, execution. Whereas in the Carolina game, there was not a second of that game where they lost focus at any point. In this one, there were long stretches of several minutes, and I think that's what ultimately kind of did them in, as the Blues were able to convert on enough of those. This one's from Jessica, and it's been a point of conversation here earlier in the post game. Stevenson was given too much ice time at the end. I get he wins faceoffs, but he isn't a shooter or dirty around the net. There's been some talk about Chandler Stevenson in this one. What did you think of his game tonight, offensively and especially defensively?
Yeah, it was not as strong as it was 2 days ago. I'll tell you that. I thought he had a really good game against Carolina. I think tonight it wasn't really there. I think we saw some of the stuff that we've seen from him in the past, particularly defensively, a little bit of watching. But I don't think he was alone in that, right? Like I would not single him out defensively in this one. Like, for instance, another center, Shane Wright, I thought really struggled this evening and had a really rough game. Don't know how much of that is just matchup versus, having to worry about the trade deadline or anything else. But, I thought, Stevie did not have as good a game as he had on Monday, but I think that there were other guys in this lineup, and then basically the entire decor outside of Vince Dunn, that probably had worse ones.
Yeah, and with Shane Wright, we definitely had that conversation as well. I said I felt that he was probably the Kraken's worst forward in this one, and by ice time, he had the least even strength ice time of any of the forwards. I felt like that was deserved in this game. I kind of pointed out on the second goal, he didn't tie up the stick in a way he needed to. So I would agree with you there. And this one, some Conflicting takes here. This one from Aaron. Kind of hope the Kraken don't buy at this deadline now with how inconsistent their effort has been. And then Kraken Hockey 32. Kyrou to Seattle, please. Dylan, which side of that are you on? And we got the question earlier too. Does this change the way maybe that Jason Botterill looks at his team heading into the trade deadline?
I don't think the one game is going to change anything. I think the Carolina win and how good you looked in that and kind of how much of a playoff primer that game really was for them, I think probably means that whatever was going to happen tonight for the most part wasn't going to change what the front office was thinking. That, and we've been talking about it, all the signals that they've been sending all season has been that they want to do something big. It's just they have not been able to find the right fit as far as what player, what team to be able to work with on that front. So I don't think the plan changes at all for Jason Botterill and the rest of the front office. As for does tonight's performance mean that they should do something? Well, look, you've struggled against the Blues forever, in part because of Robert Thomas and especially Jordan Kyrou, who's third all time in goals against you. Yeah, if you can swing a trade for him so he's not scoring against you every time you see him, it's probably a good idea.
Yeah, I would think so. And I agreed with that I don't think it changes Botterill's mindset. Another interesting factor, though, from Cole here, not sure losing the last 2 games against the Blues convinces any of their trade targets to come here. We needed convincing wins. And I do wonder what's going through Kyrou and Thomas's minds, if that's something that might be on the table. They've got to waive their no trade clause, and they just saw the Kraken do that.
Right. So I definitely agree with that, because I think that's one of those things when you are playing players that have no trade clauses, that is something that you need to be able to do. Vince Dunn said something that was kind of flirting with that idea as well, and I thought that was interesting. Was just that
Are you pulling it up?
It was. I'm trying to. I was kind of far away from him, so and the room was.
I can buy you some
at
time
the time,
also.
So
get right into the next comment if you want.
I would have to try to find it in all this if the the transcription even
stuff,
caught it. So I don't know that I'll be able to, but basically it was, he was talking about the time of year and kind of everything that's going on and wanting to put your, best foot forward. I'm totally paraphrasing. He did not use this language, but that was the idea that he was trying to get across. But it did not sound like he was saying oh, I have to do that, so I'm showcased well. It was very much about the team showcasing themselves so that they looked attractive to other people.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense. And that's something you do have to think about. Anybody of note that's a really, really good player, a difference maker, a star player, they're going to have trade protection. That's just what happens in these contracts. They're going to have to want to come here. Right. And then Ursa Root asked,
I was going to say real quick, look, if you had Robert Thomas or Jordan Kyrou tonight, only former St. Louis Blues were able to score for you. And you would have had 3 of them, and that would have been enough. Right? Because otherwise, you got Jaden Schwartz, you got Vince Dunn on the board. They were the only guys allowed to score, and you just didn't have enough of them.
Yeah, and if it was Thomas, you take the goal off the board for the Blues.
Stick it on the other side.
There you go. Yep. Yeah, stick it on the other side. So good point there. From Urso Root, trade-wise, do you think both Thomas and Kyrou could come to Seattle in a package? If so, what do you believe Seattle would send to St. Louis? I'd say it's very unlikely. I think, and I talked about this on the Armchair GM stream last night, very unlikely. I think the Blues are much better off selling those 2 separately if they want to get rid of them. As for what the package would be, I think it would be Wright, Catton, O'Brien, and maybe something else.
Yeah, it would probably be a lot. I don't know why St. Louis would do it like that. You're limiting yourself. You're probably taking less by doing a 2-for-1, and you're in no rush to move them even by Friday, right? Like you could.
Yeah, there's no deadline
season. They've got a ton of term. I would be shocked if St. Louis did something like that. You would have to go above and beyond to make that happen, I feel like. And I am curious, your thoughts on just what sort of trade packages could be put together, especially in light of the other deal that St. Louis did make, even though it hasn't fully cleared because they are waiting on a no trade clause to potentially be waived. But that was a heck of a return, or at least in theory, of what they could get for Parayko.
Yeah, no, that was a huge return for Parayko. I think part of it is the Sabres being in a very unique position where they need to make the playoffs this year and they need to go on a bit of a run. So you give up Murtka and a first, which again that's a lot. That is a lot for Parayko. If that's the level of value, for all the Blues players, then the Kraken, I don't think they could possibly even give as much for Kyrou and Thomas together. I don't think it would be that level of value for return though. But given that package, I still think it's yeah, if it's both of them, or are you talking about both of them or just one of them?
Any sort of deal with St. Louis, because I mean, if you're St. Louis, you're looking at that package and you're like, this is what your mindset is.
Yeah, that's true. And I see what you mean. So I get it, because St. Louis, it sounds like from the reports, they have put a very high value on, well, Parayko clearly, and then also Robert Thomas. Like, that's the reason that a deal with Buffalo didn't happen around Robert Thomas, is because of their ask. And it seemed like it might have involved like Josh Norris potentially, and in addition to a bunch of like Hellenius, Quinn, a bunch of other assets from Buffalo that Buffalo just wasn't comfortable with giving up. Sounds like the ask from Utah was similarly high. So with Robert Thomas for the Kraken, I mean, maybe they're looking at, for him, right, maybe a package like we said, Wright and Catton and O'Brien or something, where if you're the Kraken, you're out on that. That's not worth it. And so I think there was also reporting from, was it Pierre LeBrun, saying that the Kraken were looking around on Thomas, but they were not interested in him at the current price. And that would make sense. Kyrou is a different story, I think.
Yeah.
I haven't heard nearly as much about the Blues insisting on a really high price for Jordan Kyrou. And that's where I could see this deal most likely getting done, because I think the Kraken do have the assets. I think the Blues really would look at something around Shane Wright, another pretty good asset, and maybe a draft pick. That seems more doable to me.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's where things have to be for him. And yeah, it just, when I first saw that package earlier today for the Parayko trade, I was just like, all right, St. Louis kind of knows what they have. This is not the full-on bargain bin discount fire sale that it was kind of feeling like for a moment. It's, no, they are serious, and they're going to make sure that they get what they can. And because they have term on all these contracts and they have that leverage to just wait it out for the off season.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, let's see, what do we have next? This one from Eric. Are the Kraken going to become the Cleveland Browns of the NHL, asking for a friend? Definitely not. The Browns are so many levels of like horrifically bad beyond really almost any team in the NHL you could even point to. The Kraken have also made the playoffs fairly recently, and they are more likely than not, I would say, to make the playoffs again this season. That would give them the same number of playoff appearances as the Browns since the year 2002.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like,
there's levels to this.
They've spent more days in a playoff spot this season than I think the Browns have in the last like 5 years total. So, no, if anything, like Buffalo was probably like a better comp, just because it's been 16, 17 years since Buffalo's made the postseason or something insanely ridiculous like that. So I would think that that would be a better comp. Not to mention also the weather. Better comp there as well.
Yeah, good point. That is true. And then Chuck saying, Dylan, was the crowd small tonight? On the broadcast, it was hard to tell if it was empty seats or just a lot of dark third jerseys. And I know I saw the tweet from Zame over at Davy Jones' locker room saying that the crowd seemed pretty sparse, and this kind of had the atmosphere he compared to a preseason game.
It was not that light. I would disagree with him there. Look, it was really empty coming in. There was a big rush 2 minutes after the game started, really right after the Kraken goal. Everybody was allowed to like kind of go down to their seats. It's a weekday. It's been raining, right? I think there was just a little bit of a lag as far as people getting off work and being able to get here, stuff like that. I actually thought it ended up being more full than I thought it was going to be, just because going through warmups, there was nobody here. And we were all like looking around like, oh my gosh, what's going to end up happening here? They came in once the game got going. Now, again, weekday work day, people kind of left for the last 10 minutes. There was a pretty big exodus, and at that point it was 3-1, so I understand it a little bit. You got to go home, got to rest up before work the next morning, but I've seen lighter, I will say that. It was not full though. like big difference from the Torrent game the other day to this one.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, I'm a little jealous you got to go to that Torrent game and I was out of town. That just seemed awesome with the sellout crowd there. I think beyond the 17,151 number the Kraken get every night.
Yeah. They found some standing room only somewhere, and they put people there for sure.
That is awesome. For Mason, if Evans and Lindgren are paired again a single time this season, Lane is throwing the season. We talked a little bit about that D pair. I made my thoughts known, but I want you to weigh in.
Oh, it was terrible. And I think that not only did they struggle, but I think like I would put most of it on Riker Evans. Like I think Riker Evans really had a rough game, right? Like we kind of talked about Shane Wright having a rough one earlier. I think on the back end, Riker Evans is the player that really stood out as struggling pretty heavily this evening. He has kind of for a while, right? I was talking with our friend Scott from Cheat Seat Sports up on the bridge, and the offense hasn't really been there for him this year. It feels like with the Lane Lambert system, he hasn't really been able to find his footing in the offensive zone and really be able to move around in the offensive zone the way that Brandon Montour does, the way that Vince Dunn does. I mean, you look at Vince Dunn's goal tonight, great example of that. We are not seeing that from Riker Evans right now. He doesn't look like the same player that played for the Firebirds, right? All those seasons, as far as just moving around the offensive zone, finding his shooting lanes, finding his passing lanes, really kind of controlling and dictating where the puck was going to go from the point. He's just not that guy right now. And he really hasn't looked that way all season. Struggled last year to look like that guy too. And then, yeah, so if that's the offensive side of things, then you look at the defensive side of things. Struggled last year under Coach Dan Bylsma, struggling this year under Lane Lambert and the defensive heavy system. I don't know. It feels like one of those things where you let this contract go, and then Tyson Jugmouth is kind of there to take that spot, or Blake Fiddler or somebody like that.
Yeah, definitely. I think Mason saying agreed with that. The bridge deal is looking smart. I think that was a good decision there. Lindsay Riker soured on me. I know Maddie over Riker here. Kylie, at least Evans didn't get a penalty tonight. So that is a positive. And then I think good question here for Mason. Basically, what happened to him? He looked so promising his rookie season. I think a big part of it is just the system fit. And, players can only, they only progress so far. At a certain point, they stop getting better. And that just kind of happened to Riker Evans.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's been system stuff, and look, he looked really good his rookie year at the NHL level because, quite frankly, it came up. It wasn't for the full season. It was a little bit later on in the year. Kraken were struggling. They weren't really a playoff team at that point, because I'm thinking year 3, right? And they allowed him to just kind of go out there and do whatever he wanted. It was the moment that you started kind of being like, all right, you got to play to the system. You can't just do whatever you want in the offensive zone. You do have to worry about things defensively. That it really put a cap on what his ceiling at the NHL level can be. And that's a pretty common thing for offensive defensemen. I mean, there is a reason that teams really go after those guys in the draft, that you can see some teams draft multiples of them every single year. And then one out of a group of 7 or 8 of them turns into something at the NHL level. It's because a lot of times when you're watching these guys at junior, when they're at the lower levels, even at the AHL, they can go out there and kind of do whatever they want, and they can get away with it. Their skating is good enough that they can come back and cover if they have a bad pinch. They can do all of those things. But then you get to the show, and that's just not the case anymore. You have to be able to play defense, and you have to find ways of contributing offensively that are responsible. I mean, this is so much of what we've talked about with Tyson Jugmouth over the years, right? On the prospect chats and everything, for anybody who's been a part of those over on Patreon, and the hero ball that he was playing. But he's doing a really good job of trying to adapt his game to also still be a system player. And especially when you're talking about a depth defenseman, you have to be a system player. You're not in your 15, 17 minutes a night going to have the latitude from the coaches to just go out there and do whatever you want, and everybody else is going to cover for you, right? Unless your Cale Makar level's good, Lane Hudson level's good, you're just not going to get that. And I think that that's kind of what Riker has fallen victim to, is something like I said, is unbelievably common. So many offensive defensemen who look great at the junior level, look really good at the AHL level, and then they get up here and they just struggle to play to what NHL hockey has to be. And Vince Dunn even talked about that today. He talked about the first goal, the Jaden Schwartz goal, and how, he said that shot from Lars up at the point is like the worst and lowest quality shot that a defenseman can have. But when you just see bodies up there, you just have to take it. That's just the way the NHL works now. That's literally what he said. He's like, that's just the way the NHL is now. And I think that that's one of those things where, Adam Larson, does not have the offensive potential of Riker Evans, but Adam Larson understands the way the game is played at the NHL level, and Riker Evans, I think, is struggling with that as far as adapting his game to fit what the NHL is doing.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. I love Vince Dunn's comments about things like that. He always gives really insightful stuff that, especially if you like, you don't maybe notice it at the time because it's not some like big controversial statement or anything like that. But when you go and comb through his answers, there's a lot of really good nuggets in there. And then speaking of the D and the blue line, Jason's asking, is there an upgrade opportunity on the blue line that we're not looking at? It seems like we have someone struggling back there each night. I mean, at the trade deadline, I really don't think the Kraken are going to be looking for a defenseman. They've got plenty of them numbers wise. And even if you think that Riker Evans is struggling, and I certainly do, you've got Josh Mahura, that steady system team player presence, exactly what you were talking about that you need as a bottom pair defenseman. You've got that guy, and anybody else that you'd get, would be probably not a big upgrade over that.
Right. And so I think it's one where the Kraken have the ability, or I should say Lane Lambert has the ability to really cycle through, Mahura, Fleury, Riker Evans, and figure out, good matchups for certain types of teams, right? Like there's no reason you can't turn that into a little bit of a revolving door matchup based thing. And I know that like normally you don't want to do that, especially with your decor, but given the situation and the fact that we've seen all of those guys play really well at some times and really struggle at other times, I would go through that tape and I would see, okay, is there commonality here as to when these guys are struggling and when they're playing well, and is it matchup focused, and can we kind of use that down the stretch to our advantage, that information?
Yeah, I feel like every Kraken coach that they've had so far anyway, whether it's Hackstall, Bilesma, Lambert, they all seem to like to, if the blue line is all healthy, which for long stretches it usually has been in Kraken history, they prefer to just kind of keep things together and not move things around and not kind of play that matchup game and stuff in the way that coaches like to do with their forwards. And I think that's probably just a coach thing.
It is. I mean, so much of playing defense, and particularly at this level, you have to really, really, really know what your D partner is doing out there. And you have to have that chemistry. And it's beyond just like chemistry of like, hey, we sometimes click and we make a play the way it is with forwards. You have to definitively know when you can make certain decisions in a split second because you know for sure what the other guy is going to be doing. And it's hard to do that without just a lot of game reps. And so you don't typically want to have a revolving door back there, particularly in one D spot, because in this case, three guys that could be rotating through there, it's going to be hard for them to build up that level of trust and understanding with the other person. And then the other person is having to learn that for three different guys and try to keep that all in his head game to game and be like, and the last thing you want, Ryan Lindgren or Jamie Alexiak or whoever it's going to be thinking about in the moment is, shoot, do I have Riker back there or do I have Josh Mahura? Right? Because they're going to play this situation differently. Because the moment he starts thinking about that, you've lost, right? He's going to get beat some way. He's going to miss something. His assignment is going to get blown. And so I think that's typically why you do not see rotations amongst defensemen in the National Hockey League, is because just the nature of what they have to do and how they have to think out there just makes it really difficult.
Yeah, and it's not just chemistry on paper or even with reps in practice. You need the game reps. The ultimate example I can think of, too, is for the Kraken. Remember the Hayden Fleury and Cale Fleury D pair?
Yeah.
Literal brothers. That looked terrible. It didn't even last a period before Hackstall just like, nope, enough. You're separated. Like, you need the game reps. Even if you are literal brothers, if you don't have those game reps, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. No, it's, there's so much that goes into it.
Yeah. Now, on the other hand, Maddie's saying, is there a world where we healthy scratch Evans and just play Mahura? That is certainly possible. Like, you can do that. That doesn't mess everything up necessarily chemistry wise. Like, you can do that. I think it'd be more likely you'd have a Lindgren Cale Fleury D pair because you've had that somewhat before. And Fleury is, a little bit more of the puck mover type. He, kind of complements Lindgren a little bit better. He plays on the right side. That way you don't have two lefties there. But you could try it with Mahura and Lindgren. You literally just had two lefties with Lindgren and Evans. I don't think it would be worse.
Yeah, and honestly, I think we might have seen that had Josh Mahura not struggled so much the other night.
Yeah,
right?
that is true. And that's it's a
we
response to that. Yeah.
right. The last time we saw Josh Mahura, he had a rough game. And so I think that plays into it.
Yeah, definitely. And let's see. Chuck Hofer couldn't stop a beach ball earlier this season. Has a 950 plus save percentage over his last 3 games. He was good tonight. He was very good tonight. Like I think that was a big part of it for St. Louis. And also he was very bad in the Kraken's earlier game, the one in St. Louis early in the season. I think it was like November 9th, whatever that was, where they tied it with like under a second to go and won the game. Hofer was pretty bad in that one, night and day from what he's been recently.
Yeah, I don't know. Watching him, like I said earlier, he was making all of the saves, but I did not once feel like confident.
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah, it's still again just looks a little iffy. Like clearly he figured it out and was doing the right things. The first goal was bad too. That rebound he kicked right out there. He didn't play that well. Of course he dialed in later. But yeah, no, there were plenty of times where he would make me nervous if I was rooting for the Blues. I don't know. I have a hard time figuring him out. And then of course the puck playing too, he's like Joey in that way. I've gotten used to not worrying about that because I'm just so used to the confidence you have with Joey Daccord back there. But Hofer seems pretty good at that too.
Yeah, I think it's just, new age goalies can just do that now. And we're just got to get used to seeing it again. It's been so long. Get rid of the trapezoid. Let's really let them go to town.
Yeah. Mason, you got to save not even paying attention. That's the night it was. I know with the Jared McCann baseball swing. Did you catch that like live as it was happening?
Yeah.
You could probably track the puck a lot better than we could on TV.
Yeah. That one was tough.
Yeah. But I mean, there were a couple too that just hit Grubauer in spots as well. It felt like a good night luck-wise for both of the goalies as far as just pucks hitting.
It did. Them. No, I genuinely think that that's kind of what this game was for both guys.
Yeah, agreed. So we'll do kind of a last call here as we're at the bottom of chat. I know there's some that I had to skip over when Dylan came on and we were talking about a lot of things. So we'll do a last call in chat. If we missed your comment, please put it back in there. We'll be happy to get to it. Dylan, anything else that you noticed from this one? Anything thoughts heading into the trade deadline? I mean, I talked for about 2 hours on the Armchair GM stream, given my trade deadline outlook. I know we talked about it on the Deep Dive podcast, but anything else that you kind of thought of since then, or just how you're feeling about the team at the moment?
No, I mean, I think as far as trade deadline goes, we'll see if they can make something happen. I think the general feel around here is that we probably don't see anything on Friday.
We also, what have been the vibes around? Because like I haven't been around. I haven't heard, normally I'd be chatting with everyone in the media and everything behind the scenes trying to see what they felt like was going to happen. That seems to be the general feeling around everyone?
Yeah, the general feeling is like, hey, look, if they do something, it will be like kind of the big swing, just like we've been talking about. And that would be really cool, but nobody's holding their breath for it. Right. And everybody's kind of like, look, unless you're getting a difference maker, why mess with this team? This team has been pretty good and solid all year. They're in a playoff spot. Don't fix what isn't broken. Right at that point. So that's been the major vibe around here from everybody. And it seems to be that way even for the scouts, because game to game, there's just fewer and fewer of them in the building.
I know only a handful tonight. And one of them was from St. Louis. That makes sense. The Blues scout would be there, okay. But yeah, they're not a whole lot in the building. So that makes sense. I think teams they know the Kraken aren't going to get rid of their UFAs. The Blues guys they're trading are pretty much known quantities at this point, the higher end guys. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense to look at that.
But I think that does mean that, look, Seattle has made it clear to other teams that don't come shopping here, right? We'll buy, but we're not going to be giving up anybody, any of the UFAs like you talked about, because otherwise we would have scouts in the building.
Yeah, for sure. But I think the Kraken have made it clear. Yeah, they are not sellers, and that makes sense where things are right now. Mason asking, would you take a look at Shimon Nemitz as a D trade? I know Mason mentioned that earlier. It's definitely one that's kind of meant more for the future than for the present. As far as what you'd have to give up, I'm not exactly sure. Probably one of your own prospects, maybe a Shane Wright type. Think about that draft class and stuff, and maybe a swap there kind of makes some sense. Devils don't really need to add more centers. I don't think he'll have the opportunity there, so I don't even know what they'd be looking at.
Yeah, I don't think that there's a real fit between the two teams as far as what the Kraken have an abundance of and what New Jersey would want. I really like the player, and I think like the only way that it makes sense for the Kraken is if you're looking at him as like your Vince Dunn replacement, right? Vince Dunn's contract's up after next season. He's just got the end of this year and then next year left under contract. That would be like a guy that you could look at to maybe replace him and have that be the plan long term. But given the way the Kraken are right now and the situation they're in, I don't know why you would prioritize that when you could also re-sign Vince Dunn too. Like it just wouldn't really make a ton of sense.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. Could you see the Blues trading Binnington to the Knights for Hill? No, I think if Binnington goes I mean, maybe Hill would go back the other way just to make the money work.
Money work, yeah.
That'd be the idea, I guess. But I guess I could see it from that perspective. But it'll be interesting to see who, if anyone, trades for a goalie with Binnington and Bobrovsky potentially out there.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks for the kind words there, Aaron. I appreciate that. Leave it to Butler. We got the Sens next. What's our confidence level looking ahead? This might be controversial. I don't know. I still feel fine. Like, look, the only time the Kraken have not, kind of brought the game that they need to bring, and we've had the disappointing thing, has been against St. Louis specifically. In the last, through basically, since mid-January, that's been the only worry is against the St. Louis Blues. And so I still feel weirdly confident just because the opponent will be different.
Yeah,
Ottawa's not that good.
No, there's something definitely to be said for that. I think, look, realistically, the rest of the way is probably what we've seen these last two games. There's going to be some nights the Kraken look really solid. There's going to be some nights they don't. And they're going to vaguely trend in a slightly upward trajectory. And
it's not going to be pretty. They're going to do just enough.
Right. And find their way into a playoff spot, but probably as a wild card. So take that for what you will as far as confidence. I mean, I'm confident that they're going to win more than they lose down the stretch. I'm not confident that it's going to be by a large margin, but I'm confident that they'll still be able to make a playoff spot, but probably not as one of the top three teams in the division.
Yeah. I mean, I
not with the way the Ducks are playing now that they have Leo Carlsson back.
I got that. And I think, Ducks and Vegas are a bit ahead here. The Oilers are still stumbling, though. I know they'll probably figure it out at some point, but it's not confidence inspiring watching the Oilers. That's why I think they might actually have a shot to hop up into that third spot, personally.
Look, if those two teams, if the Kraken are tied with the Oilers going into the last week, and it's going to be the difference between a first round matchup against the Colorado Avalanche versus a first round matchup against either Vegas or Anaheim, my money would be on Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl to find a way to get the better matchup there.
Probably. They could probably turn it on when it matters just enough. Fair enough. But I still have confidence the Kraken are going to get enough points playoffs wise. And they're going to get at the very, very, very least, I would think 2 points against Ottawa and Nashville combined, probably at least 3. I don't worry about that. Game to game, it's iffier, but they'll do what they need to do. Let's see. Forward looking, do you think the Kraken are buying or selling a year from now? That's a tough prediction to make. Also, you don't want to hear my answer to that.
I was gonna say I'm not even touching that one. There's not before this year's trade deadline. That's too far forward as far as thinking. and a whole off season to make moves as well. So
yeah. Mason, do I buy playoff tickets if we get Colorado in the first round? I think the answer is yes. You buy playoff tickets if they make the playoffs. If you can afford it and you can swing it, obviously within reason. But yes, if they make the playoffs, you buy playoff tickets.
I agree. Playoff hockey is just too good to avoid, regardless of what their opponent is and regardless of how the Kraken are looking. You got to get in the building.
Yeah. X-Kidsy, looking forward to listening to Forsland's game calling again on Saturday. Hope Edzo's there as well. I know a lot of negative talk about the ESPN broadcast as per usual on this one, but I guess didn't matter a whole lot for you, did it?
Nope. Didn't have to deal with that.
And then Cheryl, does Vegas figure it out or do they continue to fall? They look awful right now. I mean, they're certainly on fraud watch. I think a huge win tonight coming back from down 2 late against Detroit. Maybe that sparks them a little bit. Again, I think they continue to look not great, but pick up enough points to, at least probably finish ahead of the Kraken. I don't know. They're not going to look like great, but they'll be in the top 3 in the Pacific.
Yeah, they're going to be fine. It's as far as making the playoffs, I don't have a ton of confidence in them come the actual playoffs, especially because of the goaltending. I think that's really going to be a problem for them. That being said, it's going to be interesting to see if they pick it up down the stretch or not. Because I also feel like a lot of it has just been they, for whatever reason, haven't really clicked together yet. And at any time they can, and those guys start feeling better, because they also all look like they're just playing hurt and they're just kind of playing half-hearted at the moment. If at any point they actually put it together, I mean, they'll win the division. They're that good if they're playing like it.
Yeah, it feels like more of a question of like motivation / injuries than skill and ability there. They've got plenty of that. We know that. So we'll see. And we'll see what moves they make at the deadline, if they bring in a goalie or not. I think that's going to be a big factor in that as well.
Yep.
So I think with that, as we just hit the hour mark, we'll wrap this up for our post-game live. Thanks, Dylan. I wanted to thank you while you're on here for being in the building and pulling so much of the weight while I was gone at my parents' place. Really appreciate that. I know it's not easy to be up there, alone without me to guard you from Charles, or actually protect Charles from you. Actually, you probably had free reign to bug him all you wanted.
I was gonna say I was actually having a lot of fun because I was not tied down. I was up and down that bridge bugging everybody. It was awesome.
Okay, thank you, retracted. I realize I'm the one keeping you from having fun. All right, well, I'm glad you got to have your fun. Unfortunately, I will be back for the next home game, so sorry for that there, Dylan. But thanks for joining me. Thanks for holding tight, Julia. Dylan.
Oh, they accepted. Yay.
Hey, congrats. Congrats, Dylan. Awesome. Well, I'll let you go celebrate that. Yep. Congrats, Dylan. Congrats, Julia. And yeah, thank you everyone for joining us. And yeah, we'll see you all in the next one.